LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to the July 22nd edition of LiberalViewer Monday Media Mixup. Thanks for joining me and Chong the cat here. I will be using the 9 best, most newsworthy clips from the Sunday morning news analysis shows from the big 5 corporate outlets of ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and Fox News, the so-called corporate media here in the United States, for what should be a really educational, informative, fair use media criticism and political commentary show for you all today. The big breaking story, of course, actually broke right after the Sunday shows. Joe Biden dropping out, and then I add the question, will Kamala Harris be the Democratic nominee? And right up front, I'll answer it. Yes, she's going to be the Democratic nominee. 99% chance. Even if there was some question yesterday, like pretty much everyone who might have challenged her has endorsed her. So the chance of anyone else being the nominee is very close to zero at this point. So no suspense on that one. On the question I asked in the title, it is going to be kind of interesting the way I set up the show, because I'm going to show you the 4 news summaries, and they're all going to be outdated because Joe Biden waited till after all the Sunday shows to make his announcement. But why did I say 4 news summaries when I'm usually talking about the big 5 corporate outlets? Well, that's actually my first political comedy clip for you. If you look down in the video description, I have short summaries of all 9 clips. And the first one is something I complain about a lot, Meet the Press, even though their slogan is, if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. Gets preempted for sports. It's for actually several upcoming Sundays. There's going to be no Meet the Press. And what was really weird about this particular episode is that at the end of last week's show, Kristen Welker, the host, explained all this. And like in the same sentence at the end where she's saying we're going to be gone for a few, or we'll be back in August because if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press. It's like she was almost seemed like she was trying to make excuses for the slogan, but I don't know. You can tell me what you think after we watch that clip from the end of last week's Meet the Press together as the first of 3 political comedy clips over here.
This morning, we do have a programming note. Our Sunday Meet the Press broadcast will be off the air for a few weeks during NBC's coverage of the British Open and our round-the-clock coverage of the Olympic Games in Paris. I will be in Milwaukee all this week anchoring our daily streaming show, Meet the Press Now, where you can always find us weekdays at 4 p.m. Eastern. That is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please do take care of yourselves as the nation continues to grapple with what just unfolded. We'll see you back here in August, because if it's Sunday, it's Meet the Press.
So yeah, that was, I always complain about it when they preempt because of their slogan. My argument has long been, if you're a journalistic organization, your slogan should not be a lie. It should be misinformation, or, even if you're there Monday through Thursday on Meet the Press Now, which didn't even used to exist, I don't know. Yeah, I know this is one of my pet peeves, and maybe I spend too much time on it, but the second of my 3 political comedy clips, you're going to see Governor Jared Polis of Colorado talking to Jake Tapper on CNN's State of the Union. And he is actually not, his answer doesn't age so poorly in terms of defending Biden when Biden is about to drop out. Not as bad as the 3rd political comedy clip I'm going to show next, but there are actually kind of like 3 different jokes in this clip. They're like kind of minor comedic moments all the way up to the end. Jake Tapper makes a joke about Donald Trump's acceptance speech at the Republican National Convention, which if Joe Biden hadn't have dropped out, that was going to be my main topic, was like Trump reveals his malignant narcissism and rambling acceptance speech or something like that. It was off. I actually, the night of, I fell asleep after about the first 30 minutes, and then I went back and watched it Friday morning. But so I did watch it, but first time, I don't know, I guess, how scary can Trump be if I fell asleep during his speech? I don't know. Still pretty scary. And anyway, I'll talk about that a little more after see if you can spot all three jokes. One is from Governor Polis. The other two are from Jake Tapper in this clip.
It's been 3 weeks and 3 days since that since the debate, and if it seems to me that if somebody said your future depends on whether or not you can ride a bicycle, the American people don't think you can ride a bicycle, then you would go out the next day and ride a bicycle. And it just seems like President Biden in 3 weeks and 3 days has not been able to come forward and provide the kind of presentation that would convince the American people that he is up to the job and that he is cognitively who they need a president to be. I respect that you're giving President Biden the space, but to make his decision. But I mean, wouldn't he have shown that he can do this by now if he could?
Well, the guy can definitely ride a bike. The guy is capable of being president of the United States, and he's doing a fine job at it. I think the question is he capable of running a winning campaign over the next 3.5 months? And the evidence so far is we're down against a very weak Republican candidate who's a convicted felon, whose economic policies would be devastating, who's threatening to take away our freedom. So we should be up. And we're down. And again, President Biden, the burden is on him to really show, hey, I'm the guy with the plan for the next 4 years. I can turn it around, and you don't need to hold your breath every time I talk because we got this. And he hasn't done that yet. Again, right now he's obviously recovering from COVID, and that can be very serious when you're in your 80s. And I wish him well, and I hope that he recovers and comes back full strength.
Yeah, thank you for the second reminder that he's in his 80s. Before we go, I know that you're working on a new national initiative called Disagree Better. At the RNC, former President Trump called for Americans to come together, even as the rest of the speech was not exactly what I would call unity material. He called Nancy Pelosi crazy. He repeated his false claims about the 2020 election. What did you think of President Trump's speech? Did it signal any real change or a commitment to unity in a new tone?
Well, Jake, I have to be honest and admit that I didn't make it through it. That was a marathon of a crazy speech, and it shows why the Democrats should be 10 points ahead. Look, we need to be the party with a plan for a prosperous future, right? How we can grow the economy, make sure that everybody does well, enhance educational opportunity, protect our freedoms, and make sure that America remains the center of innovation and entrepreneurship that we are. I don't suffer crazy well, and after 20, 30 minutes of crazy, I just couldn't get through the rest.
It was an hour and 32 minutes, longer than Shrek. Thank you so much, Governor.
Longer than Shrek. I almost just took that part because I found that amusing. Longer than Shrek and a lot less entertaining. But also given by a very large, not very attractive person, not a human color, I guess, or if you want to bring the Shrek analogy along the way, I guess. But did you catch the other two jokes? There was from Governor Polis, well, Biden can ride a bike. That after that really weird metaphor that Jake Tapper started, well, if you wanted to prove you could ride a bike, you go out and ride a bike, right? Or if you were being accused of not being able to ride a bike, and then Jake Tapper had his little thanks for the second reminder that Biden is in his 80s, so yeah, that was like joke-filled. That was a joke-filled segment, and it was sort of showing how Jared Polis got away with not really saying anything that became inoperative once a few hours later Joe Biden decided to drop out of the presidential race for 2024, which is not the same thing you can say for this next poor guy, Cedric Richmond, protege of Representative James Clyburn, who went to work for Biden and now is co-chair of the Biden-Harris campaign, and he gets thrown out there on CBS News' Face the Nation, telling Margaret Brennan, no, Biden's staying in. He's made his decision. It's all done, because that's his job. He has to say that. But to throw him, I actually watched this interview after I already knew, and this is just kind of brutal that they made him do this like 3 hours before like everything he's saying is inoperative, and So I kind of made it a political comedy clip for the third of the 3 political comedy clips over here.
So, Congressman, we heard, as you know, before you, from two allies of Joe Biden who have now changed their position. And we now look at the tally of roughly 40 lawmakers who have called for Joe Biden to step aside. Clearly, leadership is setting up a permission structure for lawmakers to come out and say these things. Has Joe Biden lost control of the Democratic Party?
No, he's not. And he's heard those concerns. And I want to be crystal clear. He's made a decision. And that decision is to accept the nomination and run for re-election, win re-election. And I think that there are those out there that need to hear it again, that he made a decision. He's going to be the candidate. He's going to be the next president. And now it's time to focus on the threat that Donald Trump poses and what the extreme agenda is on the other side.
Is the president aware that the calls are only growing in number and not diminishing?
The president's aware of the calls, and the president has made clear that members should do what they think they need to do. And he's going to do what the American people need him to do, and that's to beat Donald Trump, focus again on working families, protecting women's reproductive rights, building the economy from the bottom up and the middle out. All of those things are what's on Joe Biden's mind. And every moment that we continue to talk about a decision that has already been made means that's a moment we're not talking about Project 2025 or a former president who's trying to divide the country.
Do you think that that Leader Jeffries, former Speaker Pelosi, and Leader Schumer could stop these conversations if they wanted?
No, I was a member of the House. Members of the House are going to say and do whatever they want to do, and they
That's
earn
a pretty
that
big
right.
thing to come out against their own president.
And the president has a right to run for re-election. 14 million people voted for him. 80 million people voted for him in the last election. And look, you just had Dean Phillips on who ran against him. The president beat Dean Phillips in Dean Phillips' own district. The voters in Congressman Dean's district wanted the president to be the nominee. And he is the nominee, and he's going to be the next president of the United States.
Poor guy had to go out there and give out those talking points that just like you can look at it in retrospect and you can understand that's his job, but he probably doesn't even know what he's saying isn't true, so you can't really say he's lying, but he is, I guess the best thing you can say is he's doing his job, saying something that turned out not to be true very shortly thereafter. And that's kind of the case with the 4 news summaries. I was talking about this earlier. I mean, not that it's not the fault of the news programs that they didn't know that Joe Biden was going to drop out a couple hours after their broadcast, but it actually adds in this extra special dimension of media criticism that everyone automatically can implement or can use when watching these news summaries, because we all know what happens with the pressure on Joe Biden to drop out, which is one of the main stories that you'll see in all these news summaries, along with the Republican convention. The first and longest one is ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. Co-host Martha Raddatz introduces it, and then Jon Karl does his report, both on the Republican nominees, Trump and Vance, and how they never really made it to their softer unity tone, and then also pressure growing on Biden to drop out. Like I said, the longest of the news summaries, and you can juxtapose it with the other 3 after we watch it together over here.
Good morning and welcome to This Week. Just 1 week after surviving an assassination attempt, Donald Trump is officially the Republican nominee for president, with new running mate J.D. Vance now by his side. But if you thought the former president is now a changed man after that assassination attempt, think again. After promising a message of unity, he slammed President Biden and the Democrats last night with his typical fiery and demeaning language. Yet our brand new ABC News Ipsos poll shows the Trump campaign may have some wind at its back, with Trump's favorability rating at 40%. That's up 9 points since June, and now at the highest level in nearly 4 years of ABC News Ipsos polling. This as President Biden is hunkered down with COVID and facing a swell of calls from Democrats to get out of the race. More than 35 members of Congress publicly calling for him to abandon his campaign. And our latest poll shows 61% of Americans believe Biden should leave the race, including 60% of Democrats. Vice President Kamala Harris fares slightly better overall in our poll, with 46% saying they'd be dissatisfied with her as the nominee, compared to 55% for Biden. But the president is vowing to fight on, saying he'll return to the campaign trail this week. So can he beat back calls to step aside and make it to the Democratic convention? Now 4 weeks away. We'll tackle it all this morning, and we begin with This Week co-anchor Jon Karl.
Good morning, Martha. As President Biden recovers from COVID, his advisors insist that he has made his decision. He is staying in the race and will be back at the White House and back on the campaign trail in the coming days. But the pressure continues to mount from influential Democrats who want him out of the race and are not taking no for an answer. Overnight, former President Donald Trump held his first campaign rally with new running mate J.D. Vance.
You're going to be a fantastic vice president.
Hitting battleground Michigan exactly 1 week after surviving the assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. His talk of striking a unifying tone didn't make it through his convention speech in Milwaukee.
Our opponents have turned incredible success into unparalleled tragedy and failure.
And last night, he was back to his familiar personal attacks.
Did you see Nancy Pelosi is selling out Biden now? Did you see? She turned on him like a dog.
While Trump is riding high up in the polls, Biden is in Delaware, sidelined by COVID and facing a growing rebellion in his own party.
The current situation is unsustainable.
At the beginning of the week, 20 members of Congress had called for the president to step aside, including just one senator. As of this morning, there are now at least 38 Democrats in Congress calling for him to drop out, including 4 senators. And some of those who continue to back the president are doing so less firmly.
If President Biden decides to step back, we have Vice President Kamala Harris, who is ready to step up, to unite the party, to take on Donald Trump, and to win in November.
Privately, the pressure on Biden is even greater. As ABC News first reported, Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer has urged him to drop out, warning that if he stays in, he's likely to lose and will hurt Democrats running for Congress. Democratic sources say Hakeem Jeffries, the party's leader in the House, has privately said essentially the same thing. It's not clear what would happen if Biden bows to pressure and drops out. Vice President Harris would be the most likely successor, but the New York Times reported Friday that former Speaker Nancy Pelosi told California Democrats this week that she would favor a competitive process among multiple candidates rather than the automatic anointment of Harris as Biden's replacement. Meanwhile, there are signs that the public pressure on Biden is about to get more intense. I am told that a significant number of Democratic elected officials, people who have not gone public yet, are about to go public in a coordinated fashion to make the case that Biden needs to get out of the race. That is, unless he makes that decision for himself and makes it soon. Martha?
Jon Karl, thanks. I'm joined now by former Democrat and now independent Senator Joe Manchin.
I don't have a clip of Senator Joe Manchin, who with a heavy heart asked Joe Biden to drop out of the race a few hours before he did. And actually, when I watched that interview with Martha Raddatz, it almost sounded like he was thinking he was going to run. He was going to change back to be a Democrat again after leaving the Democratic Party, just so that he could throw his hat into the crosser, into the ring. But he actually came on Morning Joe this morning and said he's not running, but he would like to see some sort of process with, not directly to Kamala Harris and I mean, I think it's going to be Kamala Harris. And the one other thing, most of that reporting, I think, held up. It did kind of sound like there was a good chance Biden was about to drop out of the race, which, in fact, he turned out he actually did, as we know. But there was that one piece of reporting there. I mean, maybe it was true that Nancy Pelosi said that she didn't favor Kamala Harris. She favored some sort of competitive process. And I mean, the delegates are still going to vote. And not everyone has endorsed Kamala Harris yet, but Nancy Pelosi endorsed Kamala Harris today. So I don't know why she would have moved so quickly from competitive process to endorsement, unless that was a misreported story, or maybe she did. But that's the one fact that didn't really hold up all the way through the facts we know today. And now let's compare it to the Fox News Sunday reporting on basically the same topics, with the host Shannon Bream and their reporter Kevin Corke. In the news summary from yesterday, I'll talk about with you a little more after we juxtapose it to the last one and watch it together over here.
Hello from Fox News in Washington. Newly official as the 2024 GOP ticket, President Trump and Senator Vance are speaking out for the first time together in a sit-down interview since wrapping up the RNC convention in Milwaukee, talking with Jesse Waters about the assassination attempt on Trump's life just 8 days ago in Pennsylvania and the investigations now underway.
The FBI is doing an investigation on the assassination attempt. Do you trust the Bureau?
I don't trust the Bureau leadership, but I certainly think there are a lot of good field agents, guys on the ground. But what the hell was going on? How was that guy ever allowed to be there in the first place? Because I think somebody, whether it's higher up or somebody else involved, really did screw up.
There's some things going on with our government that we have to really worry about. Did we have enough people? Why didn't we have enough people? Somebody said that a lot of people were put on Biden's detail. The problem is Biden doesn't draw anybody. He draws flies.
We've got some breaking news on that overnight. We'll have more of Jesse's interview later in the show. You can see the full conversation this Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Fox News channel. Now, on the other side of the ticket, a growing number of Democrats urging President Biden to step aside for the good of the party, fearing a major defeat up and down the ballot if he remains on the ticket. In a moment, we'll get reaction from Democratic Congressman Jake Auchincloss, who's not publicly called for Biden to drop out. But first, let's turn to Fox News correspondent Kevin Corke in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, near the president's vacation home. He's recovering there. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Shannon. There are competing Democratic narratives surrounding the Biden campaign at this hour. It's either Joe must go or we're not unanimous, but we are united in our support of the president. But that tug of war continues amid growing concerns among Democrats about the health of the Biden campaign and increasing calls for the president to step aside and leave the race, with nearly 36 Democrat lawmakers insisting time's up. Worse yet, the drumbeat for Biden to leave the top of the ticket really hit home Saturday, with large protests outside the White House itself from self-proclaimed Democrats urging him to end his run for re-election. Summing up the rift, Virginia's Jerry Connolly, who told the New York Times, "We have to cauterize this wound right now, and the sooner we can do it, the better." A sentiment shared by many in party leadership privately, who continue to insist publicly that they're riding with Biden for now.
Look, Joe Biden is our nominee, and he has a really big decision to make. But what gives me a lot of hope right now is that if President Biden decides to step back, we have Vice President Kamala Harris, who is ready to step up to unite the party.
This, as a detailed update on the president's condition from White House physician Kevin O'Connor, shows the president completed a 6th dose of Paxlovid on Saturday. The 81-year-old said to be experiencing hoarseness and a persistent cough, but his symptoms, Shannon, apparently are improving steadily. Back to you.
That is good news. Kevin Corke reporting from Rehoboth Beach. Thank you very much, Kevin. Joining me now, Massachusetts Congressman Jake Auchincloss.
And I'm not going to show. Actually, the guests on Fox News Sunday didn't have to do as bad as Cedric Richmond in that comedy clip. I didn't actually take any Fox News Sunday newsmaker clips just because time has moved on. But That also still holds up fairly well, knowing the outcome of Biden dropping out. The one quibble I have with the protests against Biden asking him to drop out really hit home with protesters at the White House, but actually Joe Biden was in Delaware on Saturday when that footage took place, so they created a little extra conflict that didn't really exist. That's more a bias of all the media, sensationalism, I guess. But I guess the dishonesty is more the trademark of Fox News and its non-journalistic Republican propaganda outlet. But anyway, I want to move on to the last two news summaries, which are both around a minute. The State of the Union one is a little over the minute from Jake Tapper here, where covering Secret Service scandal over Trump assassination attempt. Biden has COVID, calls for him to drop out of the race grow, but not much to it because it's only a minute and 15 seconds over here.
Hello, I'm Jake Tapper in Washington, where the State of our Union is unsettled. We begin this morning with urgent questions surrounding the 2024 presidential race. Some for the U.S. Secret Service, reeling from serious security failures surrounding the attempted assassination of Donald Trump 8 days ago. The agency is finally acknowledging it did indeed deny requests by Trump's team for additional resources and personnel over the past 2 years, after initially claiming those charges were not true. Said Trump's campaign manager, Chris LaCivita, quote, "They lied." This amid serious questions for President Joe Biden, who is wrapping up his medical isolation period after a COVID diagnosis, though his political isolation continues, as more than 30 Democratic lawmakers are now openly calling on him to step aside, given his political weakness and unanswered questions about his health and cognitive fitness. President Biden says he's not going anywhere, announcing plans to campaign this week and meet with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, on Tuesday. Still, as many agitate to push him out of the race, it's not clear exactly how Democrats would pick his replacement or if a new candidate would definitely perform better. Joining us now to discuss all of this, Independent Senator Joe Manchin.
And as I said, I'm going to spare you Joe Manchin clips. In fact, the only two newsmaker clips are two different clips of Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. I'm comparing two cross-examinations of him by Jake Tapper and Martha Raddatz from CNN and ABC. And that'll actually be coming up after the news summary that only have 3 clips left. It's a little bit of a shorter show today. But that CNN State of the Union news summary was fine. And actually, CNN has the advantage of being the last one to broadcast, so I think they had more information on that Secret Service scandal. But I think the CBS News Face the Nation news summary is like the winner of the Billy Joel We Didn't Start the Fire Award of the week, or of sometimes I award that. It's just the mentioning the most topics in the least amount of time. This is like 59 seconds, under a minute, and they get in the aftermath of the attempted Trump assassination, the Trump classified documents case in Florida dismissed, Trump and Vance nominated, pressure grows on Biden to drop out, and he has COVID. So I don't know, is that the Billy Joel We Didn't Start the Fire Award? You let me know after we watch that last news summary together over here.
Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. As we start a new week here in Washington, the country is still making sense of the tumultuous moment that we are in. On Monday, just 2 days after Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt at a Pennsylvania rally, a federal judge in Florida dismissed the charges brought by special counsel Jack Smith for Trump's mishandling of classified documents. Those counts had been widely viewed as the most serious charges out of all the felony counts he faces in federal and state courts. Smith plans to appeal. That same day, the Republican National Convention kicked off in Milwaukee, and Mr. Trump selected Ohio's junior Senator J.D. Vance as his running mate. And it was a rough week for Mr. Biden following both his COVID diagnosis and the ongoing debate within the Democratic Party about whether he remains at the top of the ticket. We have a lot to get to, and we begin this morning with the Republican chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Ohio Congressman Mike Turner.
I don't have a clip of Mike Turner. I almost took a clip of Mike Turner at the hearing for the director of the Secret Service today, because he made this little slip where He said the gunman wasn't killed until after Trump was killed. I almost use that as my political comedy clip just because it's the kind of slip that they would have like hounded Biden with for like a week if he had said it. But, someone like the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Mike Turner, says it, and it's no big deal. In fact, they even showed that clip on one of the Fox News programs and didn't even mention the slip at all, which was kind of weird. But anyway, I don't have any clips of Representative Mike Turner, but you can tell me which of the news summaries you think did it best, or I guess CBS News Face the Nation did the most with the least, as I was saying, but which one did it best, especially knowing the outcome after watching them predict. They didn't really predict the outcome, they just reported the facts on the possibility of two different outcomes, and we know which one actually happened. So the next two clips are both the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, on two different programs on CNN State of the Union and ABC's This Week with George Stephanopoulos. And first, he floated this really weird legal theory and he says he's a litigator, that somehow the Republicans are going to oppose putting Kamala Harris as the presidential nominee, or whoever the Democratic convention nominates as the nominee, because they can't just change it. And he has this whole thing about how it's not fair to the voters who voted, which, first of all, the nominee is not the nominee until the Democratic convention, national convention. That's the whole point of the convention, and the delegates have to vote. And the person who gets nominated, that's the person who gets the spot on the ballot for the Democratic nominee, the person who the convention nominates. So what sort of legal theory is going to stop that? I don't know. And then the idea that it's not democratic, well, the thing is, the process for the Democratic Party, it's not a direct, it's, all those like right-wing people say, well, the United States isn't a democracy, it's a republic, because we don't have a direct democracy. We elect representatives and then they vote on the policy. Well, it's kind of the same with the Democratic National Convention. When you vote in the elections, like here in California, you vote for a slate of delegates. Like if you vote for Biden, people run to be the Biden delegate. Like in 2008, I actually ran to be an Obama delegate, but I didn't win. And it's selected by like the Democrats in my county here, Sacramento County, selected who the delegates in each of the precinct, the Democratic voters in each of the precincts vote for who the delegates are going to be to go to the convention. And there are like 3,000 of them. There are some other ways in different states that delegates can become delegates, but those are the people who get to decide. And if you can get the signature of 300 delegates, you can run to be the Democratic nominee. That was true before Biden dropped out too, but it doesn't look like anyone's even going to try to run against Kamala Harris. I guess we'll find out. Apparently there's like some virtual online delegate roll call vote that's going to take place like August 7th or the first week in August, sometime around then. So this whole process is according to the rules of the Democratic National Committee and Convention. And now I've totally pre-criticized this clip in a way that Jake Tapper really does not push back at all, except for this one like Colorado question that I didn't think was so great, as I will explain to you a little more after we watch that clip together over here.
President Biden is facing rising calls to exit the race. Democrats are looking into potential legal hurdles to replacing their nominee so late in the process. Do you think that whoever emerges from the Democratic Convention as that party's nominee for president and vice president, do you think those people should be on the ballot in all 50 states? Or would you support efforts to sue to keep those nominees off state ballots, assuming it's not President Biden and Vice President Harris?
Look, I'm a former litigator, a constitutional law attorney. I just made note in some comments over the last week that they have real problems. Every state has their own election system. That's our constitutional system. That's the way it's done. And in some of these states, it's a real hurdle. They have a real problem of replacing the nominee at the top of the ticket. Remember, Jake, Joe Biden was chosen after a long, small d Democratic process by 14 million people emerging through that primary. It will be very interesting to see if the so-called party of democracy, the Democrats, go into a back room somewhere and switch it out and put someone else at the top of the ticket. I mean, I think they've got legal hurdles in some of these states, and it'll be litigated, I would expect, on the ground there, and they'll have to sort through that. They've got a real problem. You know, it was interesting. I listened to the Joe Manchin's interview, which was compelling at the opening of the show, and he made the point that this is not his father's Democrat Party. It's not the party he knew as a young man. He wanted them to be sensible and moderate, and they aren't anymore, and that's why he left the party. We're seeing that across the board. We have a demographic shift going on in the country right now with a record number of Hispanic and Latino voters and black voters, African-American voters, the Jewish community coming into the Republican Party because they're looking for answers to all these great challenges facing the country, and they feel like the woke progressive left has taken the Democrat Party way over the edge. They have, and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris helped engineer that, and I think they're responsible for it.
When some states, Colorado, Maine, tried to disqualify Trump from the ballot last year, you said that every American citizen registered to vote should not be denied the right to support our former president. Could it not be argued that every American voter also has a right to vote for whomever the Democrats nominate?
Well, yes. I mean, the comparison between the two last cycle and this one is apples to oranges. What they're trying to do, a handful of people in the party, including some of the top elected Democrats in the country, are trying to push Joe Biden out. You know, it's an interesting question, Jake. If he's incapable of running for president, how is he capable of governing right now? I mean, there is 5 months left in this administration. It's a real concern, and it's a danger to the country because on the world stage, our adversaries see exactly what all of us see, and that's a problem. We're projecting weakness on the world stage, and that's why our adversaries are acting so provocatively. This is of great concern to all the American people.
You've had interactions with the president privately. Has he seemed cognitively impaired?
And you can see there, Jake Tapper follows up on the mental acuity question about Biden, doesn't really push back. You know, there was that one, you know, well, you said in Colorado people should be able to vote for who they want, but nothing about how, you know, they're switching the nominee when there is no nominee yet. That's the whole point of the convention, is to nominate someone. And then the backroom thing, when what's really happening when Joe Biden's the only one who can decide to drop out, as I said, for many weeks, and he did decide to drop out. And then those 3,000 delegates who were elected by those 14 million primary voters, then they vote. That's the whole process. It's not some backroom deal. It's who are those delegates, the mostly Biden delegates, who are they going to vote for? And right now, it doesn't look like anyone's even running against Kamala Harris, and she is most likely to be the person they vote for. And we're going to have a Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump race, maybe even a debate. That would be a great debate. But I wanted to juxtapose that bad cross-examination from Jake Tapper there. Oh, both on the small d, you know, it's a violation of small d democracy, and also on the whole, like, I'm a litigator, I'm a former constitutional law litigator, and we're going to go after the Democrats for trying to change their nominee when they don't even have a nominee. I mean, it's a ridiculous legal argument, which Martha Raddatz, I think, does a much better job of pushing back on in this shorter final newsmaker clip that I will talk about with you a little more before the bonus Cheech and Chong, the kittens clip I have for you. Well, here's the last newsmaker clip. Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, trying to get away with the same incorrect information, actually gets cross-examined over here.
I want to turn to what is happening with President Biden. As of this morning, it does not look like he is going anywhere. But if he does step down, you said this week the Republicans are likely to bring legal challenges against any attempts to replace Biden on the Democratic ticket. How would that work?
Well, these elections are handled at the state level. Every state has its own system, and in some of these, it's not possible to simply just switch out a candidate who has been chosen through the Democratic, small d Democratic process over such a long period of time. 14 million Democrats voted to make Joe Biden the nominee. So it would be wrong, and I think unlawful in accordance to some of these states' rules, for a handful of people to go in a back room and switch it out because they don't like the candidate any longer. That's not how this is supposed to work. So I think they would run into some legal impediments in at least a few of these jurisdictions, and I think there'll be a compelling case to be made that shouldn't happen. And so I think they've got got legal trouble if that's their, that's their intention and that's their plan. So we'll see how it plays out. We don't know. I know the Democrats are in total disarray, and I know the Republican Party is united like never before. So we're looking forward to November and this election cycle. It's going to be an interesting time for the American people.
One election law expert, Rick Hasen, said there's no credence to that notion that since Biden isn't the party nominee yet, but we'll see how that all plays out.
Yeah, we will see how all that plays out. And my prediction is you'll never hear that argument again because once the Democratic Party nominates Kamala Harris, then she'll be the name on the ballot. She'll name a vice president. They'll make all the deadlines. There was this whole controversy about Ohio moving their deadline up before the Democratic convention. That's why they're having this virtual roll call to get the nominee before the convention to make sure they meet all the state deadlines. So my prediction, we'll see how it plays out, is we will never hear Mike Johnson make that argument again. It will go back into his very big dustbin of misinformation and disinformation and bad ideas that not a big Mike Johnson fan, but I think I talked about that right when he became speaker. And the constitutional law he's talking about is the what is it? The ADF, the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is this right-wing Christian organization that defends the rights of Christians and religious people and goes against the rights of people, LGBTQ rights and all sorts of, against abortion. And anyway, so kind of a warped view of the Constitution and a bad argument that shows he's just one of the kings of bad arguments. And anyway, that is the last of the newsmaker clips. I think I made that pretty clear. I did promise that I would give you a bonus Cheech and Chong the Kittens clip, although I did start off the show with Chong, and then Cheech and Chong were both here for a little bit, but they've gone off. But this hallway right out here outside my little broadcast studio, I used it as a little runway to capture them both coming towards the camera. I got a good close-up of Chong at the end, right up to the camera, and I think there's even a mew in the bonus Cheech and Chong clip that I will show you before ending the program over here. Little extreme close-up there at the end. I always like the extreme close-up, and the resolution of the camera is not bad. That's my iPhone as the camera there. So anyway, that's the bonus Cheech and Chong clip. Last week I was saying I didn't know what the topic was going to be this week. Who knows what the topic is going to be next Monday. I may actually have some time to upload some other kind of video this week. Biden is supposed to be making a speech where he explains his reasoning for dropping out. Maybe it will put to rest the calls from people like Mike Johnson. Speaker of the House came out today and said that Biden should resign, but he can finish up his presidency as far as we know. And there aren't really, I mean, if the Republicans really want to impeach Joe Biden in his last several months as president, I guess they can go ahead and do that, but I don't think it's going to help them very much in the election. And anyway, so maybe I'll have some other reason to upload a video this week. If not, I'll be back on Monday and every Monday through January 2025, giving you my Monday Media Mix-Up. I hope you appreciate the time and effort I put into watching the programs, picking out the clips, adding my political commentary and media criticism. And until next week, or until I have some other reason to upload a video, I guess I will be seeing all of you around the internet.